Have a new topic for you to cover because it is one of those topics that I know a lot of facilitators who apply the Demartini method have struggled with this particular topic. And also, if you're a coach and maybe you don't use the Demartini method, but you also have difficulty with this, and that is how to identify the emotional charge and peel back the layers so we can actually get to the charge itself. So a lot of times facilitators get frustrated with themselves in trying to really identify and get to the root cause of what the challenge is. And they worry about getting it wrong. They worried about maybe I was working with someone this week, and they were saying that they worry about what happens if I mess them up even more, and they are even more emotionally challenged and charged than when I started. And so today we are going to be covering 3 aspects of how to identify. Well, actually, really, it's the problem over the problem we're really going to have a look at in this class. And so we're going to talk about the invisible resistance, because there seems to be like a resistance in terms of being able to actually work with your client. And so that might be a resistance from the client itself and also yourself. We're also going to cover something called You Framed Yourself. You're going to love it. And then also understand the complex nature. And so today, welcome to class. So we are going to cover how to effectively peel back the layers to identify the real charge with a client. Now, first of all, if you would love this PDF right here, there, then all you need to do is in the chat below say charge, and we will get this PDF to you. There are some great exercises that get you thinking and changing your mindset around your emotional charges and how to identify it with a client. So stay with us. If you're watching the replay, hit replay. If you're here live, hit live. It is great to see you. So first of all, let's define what it means to identify a specific charge. So a client comes to you and they want an outcome, whether it be they want to have more finances coming in the door. Maybe they want to resolve a conflict in their relationship. Maybe they want to get more congruent with their decisions and actions they're making in their interpersonal relationships. And so there's an outcome that the client is seeking from you. And when they come to you with their problem, often people have a problem, but there's a deeper charge or a deeper dynamic that goes on underneath it. So they present you with an issue. Say, for example, I'm depressed. Well, depression's not the issue. Or if they come with, I'm struggling with finances, finances isn't the issue. It's the byproduct of a deeper issue. And if we as coaches have the ability to get down to the deep core issue of what's really going on, we get to hit them at the core level rather than at the surface level. And so we then have to be able to identify and articulate and have the clients articulate clearly what is actually going on. So I wanted to talk to you about today about some of the layers and the resistance that we have and that clients have in being able to identify. So first of all, let's talk about this idea and concept of a invisible resistance. And so this is where you, as a facilitator, as a human being, are dealing with a complex individual. And so there's this not imaginary, because it's definitely felt, there's this invisible resistance around the client. And when they have this invisible resistance, you can almost feel it. You can feel like they want to resolve their issue, but there's a challenge that they're faced with and they can't really articulate or get to the core, and you feel like you're kind of skirting around the outside, or you jump from one issue to the next. And so I wanted to cover with you some of this invisible resistance that you might find when you're working with a client. So first of all, There is all of these, and I'm just going to go through them quickly with you. It's the fear of failure. So a client may be actually afraid to work through their dynamic and then achieve the results and then fail at it. And so they almost like don't want to dissolve it because they don't want to go through that fear of failure. Maybe they have a fear of success because sometimes people worry about maybe if they shift a dynamic and then they get and shift their success levels, then that comes with a lot of storming and norming and changing in the dynamic, and they're not ready for that. Some people procrastinate because they don't want to take action and they're not motivated. They don't have a big enough reason to go and actually dissolve the emotional charge. Maybe they have self-doubt that creeps up, lack of confidence. I don't know if I can do this. Maybe there's an element of perfectionism that streaks through them, which happens a lot for some people, and they strive to want to be perfect, and so they struggle with their what they seem to be perceptions of imperfection. And that then leads to this resistance and this invisible resistance you feel. Maybe there's a lack of clarity that the individual has. They don't really know what their outcome is. They don't really know what their end goal is. And so then they're kind of chopping and changing as they work and you work with them. Sometimes there's external pressures, you being one of them can be, but there might be friends, family, society, their spouse, their business partner that's putting external pressure on them to resolve the goal, but that's not something they internally want to do. Sometimes there's internal pressures and that invisible force of internal dynamics that are happening that they're then struggling with being able to dissolve and resolve or get to the core issue. Maybe there's the comfort zone dynamic, which happens for a lot of people. It's like, I'm really comfortable in where I am right now. I intellectually know I want to push and dissolve this dynamic and I want to get to the root cause, but that comfort zone is just like a warm blanket and you don't want to leave it. Maybe there's deeper past traumas they're not ready to face, or they have a lack of accountability, which means that they don't have a desire to go and find their purpose because their spouse goes and pays for everything for them. So why would they even want to go and find their purpose? Because they've got a cruisy, that comfort zone dynamic. And so there's not a drive for them to go and do that. So then we also have not only the invisible resistance from the client, there's also an invisible resistance within yourself. And so you as the coach want to know what that invisible resistance is for you. Maybe there's the self-doubt creeping up. Can I actually do this? Fear of failure. What happens if I work with them and I can't actually help them? The perfectionism that comes up and that I just want to get it perfect. I have to get it right. Burnout happens because sometimes people are taking on too many clients, too much going on. They don't have enough capacity because maybe they've also got something going on in their personal life. And so then the burnout, you don't have that energy to be able to help the client. So that's that invisible resistance to help them to identify. There may be also comparison, because when my mind is thinking about, well, what would someone else do, and compare themselves to another coach or another teacher, then that can shut our ability to actually hone in with and tune in with our clients. And then resistance to feedback, lack of confidence, maybe there's an imposter syndrome, you also have a comfort zone, and lack of accountability. So you want to first of all identify these invisible resistance that you have that's stopping your ability to go in and actually identify the issue in the first place. Because if we don't work on this invisible resistance and we just have it and we haven't noticed and identified it and named it and had a conversation about it, say, for example, if there's a lack of accountability, and now you are sitting there and you are trying to kind of figure this out, and then you realize, the invisible force right now is this individual has a lack of accountability. They've come to you with an issue, I want to find my purpose. And then they say, and they're trying, but you feel this invisible dynamic around you. And then if you don't address that, then it doesn't matter how much work you do. It's really the accountability that needs to be looked at to get them to take more ownership of their life, step outside of the comfort zone of ease, have a bigger drive, say, to make finance and to grow their finances and to contribute within the relationship. And then that will shift the dynamics. So then they're actually in a space to be able to work And then there's also your own inner work. That's why we show up with our classes each and every week for you inside of our Maximum Growth Academy, so that you can do the inner work to shift your own dynamic, the imposter syndrome, getting outside your own comfort zone, maybe if you're going through a stage of burnout. So it gives you that opportunity to shift your inner world and change the conversation or the dialogue you're having internally, so that you can show up more present for your clients. So that is the invisible resistance that we want to notice, especially when it is coming to effectively dissolving or identifying the emotional charge that a client has. So hopefully you're loving this in-depth education. Today, our next topic that we are going to talk about is you have framed yourself. So what I mean by that is there is a perception, and we know that perceptions have a huge impact on ourselves. And so as we show up to the world, and our perceptions, they put this like lens of the world, and we filter the world accordingly. And so almost if I'm just going to talk it in my school of knowledge of the Demartini method, almost every facilitator at some stage in their journey has said the defining of the trait, action or inaction, is the hardest part. It's the most difficult. It's the most complex. I struggle with it the most. And so this frame, you've framed yourself for it to be difficult. You get a confirmation bias that it is difficult. You set yourself up then to attract clients that then it's really difficult for them to define what it is. I had a client today, and we were talking about the dynamic that they have where they go into avoidant mode when it comes to difficult conversations. And I was saying to them, well, first of all, it's about you identifying how you're feeling, putting a name to it so you can actually know what that is and articulate it. And then you can start working on it. It's very difficult if you don't even know how you're feeling. And so we can then have this, say, confirmation bias. If we say that it's really difficult to identify it within ourselves, it's difficult to identify it with others, we stay in this box, in this frame of perception that actually influences the relationship dynamic. So if you find it difficult internally to express or to notice and identify how you are feeling and the perceptions you have, then you're going to find it difficult for other people as well and to help them. So talking about you framed yourself. So what you want to consider to do is inside of the box in the PDF, you want to then start to unpack the dynamic that you have about the frame of reference that you have around identifying a specific trait, action or inaction. What are you saying to yourself that's actually impacting your potential to connect and identify the charge with a client? So I just wanted to cover a couple of them because some of them sound like you already know what it is. Like it's hard. I find it difficult to articulate. There's one about overconfidence. So sometimes people come in, especially if there's the Demartini method. Well, I know how to solve it. I can solve any problem. And that overconfidence actually makes you somewhat cocky. And then you miss the small things. And so then we're not really listening in and honing in with what the specific client is saying. We're already jumping to a solution instead of getting to the root cause. So then after some time, you're like, hang on, this isn't even what we should be working on. So that overconfidence can blind you. And then we also have something which is called selective perception. So selective perception is that you already have an idea of what you're going to do with the client. So you're already going, okay, I'm going to work on column 10, I'm going to work on column 6, I'm going to do column 3. And so you've already said, I'm going to use the side C of the grief process. And so you've already set up with them what you are actually going to do. And so that then you find information to support that so that you can use those particular column questions, or you can use your methodology that you have to get the outcome for them. But that's because you've honed in and you want that outcome, and then you've honed in and listened to them rather than being open and receptive to what they're talking about and what they're sharing with you. Because clients actually have a beautiful way in which they actually share what's going on. You just have to listen to their inflections. You have to listen to their body language. You have to hear their tonality, what they repeat. Those are great ways and signs for you really to understand the deeper charge. So, and we definitely go through that in more detail because we apply the Demartini method in bite-sized pieces each and every week throughout the entire year. And that's one of the steps that we have a big focus on, is getting you to identify. We spend one class just identifying a trait, action or inaction, and we go through some of the subtle nuances. When you get into Maximum Growth Academy, you get the access to all the classes we've had for the last 4 years, and then you can go back and really hone in on that particular skill. So we then also have the last topic I just wanted to cover with you, which is complex nature explained. So when we have this idea that we are supposed to come in and we're supposed to, in a matter of 3 to 5 minutes maybe, identify what's really going on with this particular individual, and then you're going to get them to articulate it in 3 to 4 words, exactly what's going on, we are forgetting that you have and your client has a complex nature. And so what I mean by that is there are so many different dynamics going on with your client that it's sometimes to be able to simplify and say that you can do it in 3 to 5 minutes, and then you're off and you're identifying the highest, most charged trait, action or inaction, and then from there you are able to kind of get them to heart open and have that expectation each and every time. Given the complexity of human behavior and the complexity of humans, then it's a little bit of a lopsided perception that you have, because when we look, I call it like a ball of mess. I did one of these classes on that ball of mess, and I call it a ball of mess because when someone comes to you and it's the very first time you're meeting them and they hand you their ball of mess, and so in it you just think, oh my gosh, that's a lot, and then you're just trying to kind of unravel it. And as you do, what I notice is the first session, you start to get to understand and you get to interact with the client and you get to kind of understand their world and their thinking. By the second one, you're starting to see a little bit more of a pattern of behavior, and you're getting to see a pattern of language, and then you're getting to dig a little bit deeper. Then by the third session, it's normally about the third session for me, where I kind of notice inside of the ball of mess, inside of this, there's this one string that if I pull that one string, that a lot of the other charges will start to unfold. So for example, someone I was working with this week, one of the deeper dynamics that they have is around the perception of being abandoned. And so one of the dynamics that shows up for them, particularly in their business at the moment, is clients moving away from them, a deal falling through. And so this deeper ball of mess, which originally came because they're wanting to grow their business, but they're having some difficulties in their business at the moment. And then as we dig deep and we find inside there, that's actually the abandonment dynamic. That's how they feel though. It's not actually what we're working on, but it's like the deeper, say pain point that we're working through. And then we then go, okay, so from there, I'm going to identify that. And once I've identified it, that perception of being abandoned, I'm going to be left alone, then it can stem, we go and find, where did it stem from? Being left in the supermarket, being told that I'm going to leave you. And so there's the parents leaving and never coming and seeing them again. And so this dynamic builds up this fear bubble inside of them, and the emotional charge, and then sets themselves up for all these experiences of feeling like they're being abandoned. And so when we get to that core issue and we work through all the trigger points of the perception of being abandoned, and we heal that, then we get to heal at a really deep level. And so sometimes we don't know what that is, that inner bit, until we're a few sessions in. And so it doesn't mean the first couple of sessions you don't make some great insights and revelations with them, because you do. But I call it like chipping away, especially if you're on a package with a client and you've managed their expectations. So you don't say, I'm going to do everything in one session, in a 60-minute session, that you've given them expectations. I talk about the ball of mess and give them that expectation. And so then they're ready for that. So they're ready for that. Oh, now I see we've just uncovered what it's truly going on. And so as we manage the expectations of others, we've also worked on our own dynamic as well. So we're not interfering with the relationship dynamic with a client. Then we can really start to get to work with the client itself. So hopefully you've found some interesting bits of information that is going to help you as a coach to identify the emotional charge and what's really truly going on. If you found this insightful and interesting, feel free to drop your comments below. So thank you so much, team, for coming along for our in-depth question for today. Hopefully you found it interesting and intriguing. If it is something that you would love to come and have a deeper dive into, we do class each and every week throughout the entire year. Come and join us either in Maximum Growth Academy, that's really for coaches who wanted to expand and grow their coaching business. But if you want to just like trial and test our community and see if you love us, then we do have a Mindset Evolution membership where you get three co-working spaces each and every week. They're kind of like a study group. Come and hang out and do some work. We get some phenomenal insights in those sessions. And then we also have one live class where we go through the application of the Demartini method as a group. So there's demonstrations. You get an opportunity to maybe be demonstrated on and then also do the work together. It's very inspiring. We're currently working on owning our villain and our viciousness. At the moment, next month, we're going to be owning someone that we aspire and look up to and want to awaken that within ourselves. So if you've love to kind of jump on board, we will put the link to join in the chat below. So thank you, team. I hope that you have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world, and I look forward to seeing you at the next perfect time.